Hello and welcome to this 2014 R1 Edgecam presentation. Today we're going to be focusing on workflow, and moreover we're going to be looking at some of the enhancements that have been introduced at 2014 R1. Workflow was introduced at 2013 R2, and based on customer feedback we've further enhanced some of the modules that we're going to be looking at today. Let's start with a demonstration. Okay, so we find ourselves at the desktop. From here we can launch the launcher for Edgecam. And we'll see here that we've got all the Edgecam applications present, and we're going to be focusing on the 6 applications we see down the bottom left today. We can also see that we have the Part Modeler, Strategy Manager, NC Editor, and all the other applications that we'd usually find through the Start menu. We also have a series of file management tools. Here we can pin files, we can launch files, but I'd like to launch workflow from the main application we see on the bottom left. Okay, so once Edgecam Workflow launches, we'll be welcomed by an introduction screen, and again what we'll see here is that we've got file management tools, and we can also navigate the recent files and folders. We've got help files, and we can scroll and see the recent history there. So I'd like to launch first of all with a term part. What we'll see is Edgecam Workflow is automatically orientating the part and positioning a default datum position on the front. Using the control setup we can move the datum. Here for example I might want to influence the C-axis position, so using 45-degree increments I can toggle the part backwards and forwards, or indeed I could pick a unique C orientation. And there we have the hole at C0. Moving on to the ribbon on the top left, we can now start to consider stock before moving on to fixtures and machine tools. By activating the stock command, Workflow will automatically detect the minimum stock requirements to produce the part. Here we have 80mm in length, but we wish to add surplus material for cleanup on the front and back of the component. So there we'll add 1mm on the front and 20 on the back for gripping allowance. Now we can load the part into the machine tool. Here I'm going to pick a sample machine tool from the installation of Edgecam. This is the place where we'd implement custom post-processors. Once we select the post-processor, we're then offered a series of toolkits. This could be a representation of the job that's been pre-kitted, or indeed standard tools within the machine tool carousel. So once we've picked the kit, we can now move on to the next stage, which is the Features tab. Now we wish to carry out Edgecam's advanced feature recognition, and this is where we'll identify the features for manufacture around the part. We have turning features on the front page, followed by milling features, and these can all be found within the one command. Here I want to interact with the part because I have a B-axis face and I wish to automatically create a datum for this angle. Now let's have a look at machining the component. Here we can apply traditional instructions on a one-by-one basis, picking tools, cycles. And what I'd like to do to start with is use Edgecam's out-of-the-box automation. This starts with the planning board. First of all we'll plan the job, and what Edgecam will do here is identify each of the features and create a machining process in what we deem to be a logical order. Now there is certain elements of flexibility. I may wish to mill the part before I finish turn the part, and we can start to drag and drop, and we can reorder the process as we see fit. There are also elements of safety built into this to stop us making bad decisions. But first of all we'll see here I'm going to drag the rough mill up the tree, and I can influence the manufacturing order by doing this. Now as I said before, we do build elements of safety into this technology, and here you'll see if I start to move the hole drilling about, it's not allowing me to drill the holes before I've spotted them. That's an illegal move. So there are certain elements of, as I say, safety built into this. Okay, so let's have a look at machining the component. I'll just keep it simple at this stage. I would like to revert back to the initial ordering. So we'll execute the rough turning first of all, and then we'll execute the finished turning. There's several ways we can do this. I can execute everything with one button click, but here what I'm doing is executing the rough turning as a group of 4 machining toolpaths. So first of all we'll rough the face, then we'll turn the OD before machining the groove. Next I'm picking off the finishing. So once again we'll finish the groove, finish the OD and the face before moving on to the milling. And you'll see there very quickly we've created 76 CAM instructions. Now let's take these CAM instructions into the machine simulator. Here we can see that Edgecam's fully supporting the machine kinematics. We have B-axis turning at 45 degrees, and what we can see down the left side is each of the manufacturing instructions that we was applying previously. It's very easy to jump backwards and forwards inside the simulation to get to the exact point that we wish to see. I can move backwards and forwards, and there in the graphics area we'll see the billet updating in real time. Here we can see the milling being carried out using the C-axis. Okay, the final stage is to move to the NC code area. Here we can review the tools that have been used. Now, as I said previously, we pre-selected a kit, and what we can see are the tools in their turret positions that have been preloaded, and we can also see the tools that were not used on this particular job. And this is very useful for reporting purposes. We'll be having a look at the job reports shortly. So we move ahead, generate the NC file, and this is where we generate the report, which will show the tools, the images, machining instructions, etc. And that's where we're going to go next. The final stage of workflow is to launch the live job report, and this is fantastic reporting information to go with the NC file. It can be viewed on mobile devices by using the IP address we see at the top there. It's not licensed, and it can be used on any terminal really around the manufacturing facility. Here we see information about the job, the customer. We have hyperlinks to the CAD file, the NC file. We can list the tools that were used on the component. So there's a lot of good reporting information that we can see here. Okay, so that was a quick overview of workflow. Let's go back to the presentation and we'll move on to the next section. So with introduction of workflow in Edgecam, we truly believe that we're changing the game of how CAM systems are being used. We've seen a new interface, and we'd also like to go over the 5-stage process of workflow. But before we go any further, we would like to remind current Edgecam users that classic Edgecam is still available. So what's the market drivers behind workflow? Why have we come up with this new interface and technology? Basically, reviewing the market, jobs and machines are becoming more advanced, whilst the implementation of CAM software is still critical, and ease of use is of course always at the forefront of our minds. We need to become more efficient, and this is where we see the introduction of workflow, and of course this will give us a better return on investment. So let's review the process that we've looked at already today. As I say, this is a 5-stage process, and we'd just like to review each of the steps. First of all, we start the file at what's called the backstage. This is where we load the CAD file. Then we set the part up, considering stock, fixtures and machines. Before moving on to Edgecam's advanced feature recognition, this was where we found the turn profiles, the grooves, the pockets, the holes. And then we moved into the manufacturing area, where we applied the planning board before executing the toolpaths. The final stage was to review the NC code, looking at simulation, and the job reports. In 2014 R1 we've been working hard in all the areas of workflow to make improvements based on customer feedback. We've seen enhancements in the machine manager, stock and fixture managers, as well as moving through into workflow looking at part setup, introducing a new command, machine feature, and also the live job reports which we saw briefly before. As well as looking at some of the new enhancements in 2014 R1, let's go under the hood and look a little bit closer at some of the technology that's being used within workflow. We spoke about advanced feature recognition. This is the area of the software where we're identifying the manufacturable features such as pockets, holes, bosses, and within these features we store attributes, also known as properties. These could be things such as minimum radius, pocket depth, pocket width, hole size, whether there's any tapping information within the hole, and of course we can use this to make manufacturing decisions. We'll be looking at the machine feature option that's been introduced at 2014 R1. This allows us to graphically interact with the solid to machine the features in our desired order. And the technology behind this is Strategy Manager. So we're going to go back across into workflow and have a look at the next demonstration. Starting at the Edgecam launcher, at 2014 R1 we now have the ability to drag and drop URLs, internet locations, onto the tools area, as well as folders. We can also add applications. This was introduced at 2013 R2. So here we can customize the tooling area, and if you do wish to remove some of the tools we can also delete. Moving back into the workflow environment, I'd like to take a look at a milling component and look a little bit closer at some of the technology that's being used under the hood, as we said previously. Here we can manipulate the datum as we did for turning, so we can move the datum around the part before adding stock. So here we'll use some size material and we'll add some gripping allowance. If we have a look at adding a fixture, in this case here I want to add a vise, and what we'll see is that we've got a series of vices that are valid. In other words, the grip distance for the vise is adequate, and we'll also see that I get a live preview of the vise on the component. So before we actually commit to the vise, I can see a preview of the part before going ahead and selecting the vise. If we place the part on the machine tool once again, select the machine and a toolkit before moving ahead to the next area. We'll just turn some of the rendering off here so we can focus on the component. If we have a look at the feature recognition, this time we're just going to look for mill features. So we're looking for some pockets, open areas and holes. We've also got some further commands under here, and the logic behind this is that once we set these defaults, we don't really want to come back in here and touch these, so it just keeps the interface nice and clean. We spoke about the properties and attributes during the PowerPoint presentation, and what I'd now like to do is just share with you some of those attributes by opening up the properties window on the right. If we select, for example, the blind tapped holes, we'll see down the right here we get a full complement of manufacturing information. We can see we've got the levels, the depths, we've also got the tapping drill size, we've got the threading information, and this is really valuable information for when we start to execute the automation with inside the planning board, or indeed the machine feature. So if we just kill that window and we move ahead to the machining, and rather than use the planning board this time, what I'd like to do is use the machine feature command. And what this will allow us to do is to pick a feature on a feature by feature basis, or indeed we can pick multiple features. And what we'll see is that we now get a custom manufacturing order depending on what features I select. So there we've machined one pocket. Now I could say that I want to machine the open pocket on the far side, and I want to pick the holes. So we can mix and match different feature types, and this is a really powerful tool to start machining the part, as I say, on a feature by feature basis. So we've used waveform to machine the open area, and now we're starting to spot, drill and counterbore the holes. So let's have a look at some of the technology that's been used to execute the toolpaths. It's important to stress at this point that the toolpaths that we're executing on the part are sample toolpaths. Internally at Edgecam we've created what we deem to be some reasonable toolpath strategies, and the idea is that you can take these and tailor them to your needs. They are installed with the system. We do offer bespoke training courses for creation of strategies and custom toolpaths. Let's have a look at a strategy within the Strategy Manager application in its most simplistic format. Here we've got a simple drilling strategy. So we begin, everything's flowchart based. So the strategy begins at the start. We select a drill and then we execute a drill cycle. And these commands are basically drag drop into the flowchart area, as we see there, and these commands are coming from inside Edgecam. Basically all we do is we copy and paste into the Strategy Manager application, and what we see there is a roughing cycle, and it's fully populated with all the selections that have been made within Edgecam. So let's have a look at how we can mature this manufacturing strategy, and I want to do that by making a decision. So here I want to create a manufacturing scenario where if the hole was to become larger than 25, I want to, rather than drill its size, I want to pilot drill and then come in and finish. So if we edit the decision, we could say is the hole greater than 25, and to do that we'll add what's called a constraint, and what we can say is this is going to be based on the feature diameter. So is the feature diameter greater than 25? So now we need to reorder the flow. We simply drag and drop. So the start will now go to the decision node, and then we make a decision. So what we're going to say here is that if the hole is not greater than 25, in other words the question that we're asking is false, then carry on down the main stream and drill the hole to size. Now if it was larger than 25, we basically need to make a decision, and the decision there is that I want to pick a different drill. So I'm just going to copy this process here, and this will become our pilot drill. So we could say second drill, or just give it a unique name. And the drill size that I wish to pick will be, and we just find the diameter, rather than being the feature diameter this time, we can apply some logic in here. So what I'd like to say here is that I want it to be the feature diameter divided by 2, and that will give us a different size, drilling out smaller before then moving on. So now we can drag and drop, and if this decision is true, we'll pick a drill that we've called the second drill, or indeed it's the first drill. Then we'll apply the toolpath, which is the drill cycle, before going back to tool change, and then I want to rejoin the initial flow. Obviously this will drill out the hole to finish size. So there's just a little bit of an insight as to how you can edit these strategies and create your own automation strategies. As I did say previously, we do ship a whole array of strategies. Here you can see we've got a milling strategy which is considering face milling, roughing, slotting, profiling, and these will give us a real good start which we can adopt to make personal to your processes, to your shops. Okay, so that was an overview of Strategy Manager. Going back into the workflow environment, just to finish off with, we've focused on automation, but it is fair to say that we can activate the Advanced tab. We can pick tools here, and I could start to apply mill cycles, 5-axis, surface machining. But it's also important to mention that if I'm not happy with the toolpath that's been applied with the automation tools from the Edgecam install, I can actually edit this cycle. So here, for example, I might wish to make some changes. The XY offset I want to make 0.25. I want to change the tool engagement to 20%. I might want to alter the speed and feed, and very quickly we can recalculate the toolpath based on those small incremental changes. So using Edgecam's workflow in conjunction with traditional methods will really speed up Edgecam programming. Let's move back across to the presentation. So let's review what we've had a look at today during this presentation. We've been focusing on Edgecam's workflow, looking at some of the enhancements for 2014 R1. We've seen the rapid, reliable and repeatable code coming out of workflow. And I'd just like to draw your attention to the image that we see over on the right. Basically, as I said, we're going through a transitional period where workflow will eventually be the modern day Edgecam interface. We can still use the traditional interface for more complex parts, or indeed experienced users that are more familiar with that interface at this moment in time. We've seen the live job reports. This is using new .NET technology. As I say, it's live. Any speed issues that we were experiencing on large databases previously will now be eradicated, and we also support touchscreen technology for these reports. So, what are the benefits to workflow users? Well, of course, we've got improved deployment, and this is deemed to be the out-of-the-box experience. With the implementation of the automation that comes with the install, we'll see very quickly that we can start to apply automation. We've also had a look at how we can edit the automation, and this will obviously reduce the learning curve for Edgecam and indeed workflow. Ultimately, this will affect your return on investment. So I'd like to thank you for your attention today, and please do visit us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter. We have a YouTube channel with plenty of videos showing workflow, other Edgecam application areas. If you would like to know more about workflow, please do visit us at edgecam.com/workflow. Thank you for your time.